Just settling back into a comfortable posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Feeling feeling the body at rest. And relaxing the muscles in the face, the jaw, the eyes. Releasing the shoulders. Softening the belly. Oh, a sense of letting go through the body, while also recognizing, acknowledging the areas that don't want to release, don't want to soften, if there are any. Feeling the breath moving in the body, the sensations at the nostrils, touch of air, the movement of chest and belly. And if the mind doesn't easily settle on the breath, notice what it is that's distracting or agitating, whether it's a thought or a feeling. See if you can sense that in the body. And rather than trying to suppress that or change it, letting that become your concentration object, becoming absorbed in that experience. The breath can be part of this absorption. Breathing with the felt experience. Noticing when thoughts intrude, words and images, and letting them go and coming back to the felt experience and the breath. Be particularly attuned to the thoughts of self judgment when we are striving in our meditation. There's often the judging mind that assesses how we're doing. We find the mind wandering and then tell ourselves that we're failing or we're doing it wrong or we're not good at this. These are particularly pernicious thoughts. They tend to undermine our practice. So it's critical that we understand that the wandering mind is natural and that the wisest response is acceptance and kindness, even compassion towards the difficulty that we face as meditators. Most people who don't meditate never even confront the contents of their own mind. They're never faced with the challenge of letting go of thoughts. So we might even appreciate our willingness to attempt this work. Notice how your energetic state changes, your mind state, your thoughts. everything in flow, everything impermanent. But this creates a special challenge for sustained mindfulness because there is no arriving. One has to keep tracking all these elements of experience as we might get restless or tired, might get focused or distracted. Strong feelings might arise. And any one of these things and many others can disrupt our practice, disrupt our attention. Yeah, I find it challenging to sometimes to kind of give the meditation instruction that captures some of the some of the kind of effort, the kind of um, focus that is less sort of structured, and yet those more what we can call formless practices, I think, are ultimately well, I think they're more kind of organic as meditation practices. They're not sort of like just do this, count your breaths or say these words. They're really about a more natural way of being present. And this morning when I was having my own sit earlier, um, I found myself in a fairly typical place, which is that there's a kind of plodding along in your sit, and it seems like just kind of like nothing much happening, or you're spacing out a lot. You don't It doesn't seem like there's much focus, and then kind of realizing that there's an underlying subtle, I just use the word agitation, uh, and it's kind of a mix of anxiety and restlessness, but it's not really focused on anything. It's just it's more energetic. It's more like in the body, and that is kind of what is really causing the mind to not settle, and then mm, through my experience with this, you know, like remembering, oh, I need to just let focus on that, and then actually, as I use the word today in the guided meditation today, absorb into it to really and really let yourself kind of feel like you're being enveloped by this experience that you instinctively pull away from, because it is this sort of unsettling feeling, but when you absorb into it, then it the experience changes and the mind changes, and the sort of uh, focus can change, and it's not magic. It doesn't just like change everything forever, but there can be this kind of qualitative shift in the mind state, and the um, the kind of sense of being settled that happens when we do this, and it really goes along with the that principle of what we resist persists. Uh, a good you know one of those little sayings, aphorism, I guess, that you can remember, uh, because there is the flip of that is that when what we open to really settles, and it's not that it's not, as I say, it's not so much necessarily that the feeling will go away, but rather that our relationship to it changes, and it becomes a meditation object instead of being a source of discomfort. I just wanted to mention that and try to talk about that. It's uh, a I find it an ongoing challenge to kind of teach that, and it's something that you can really experience much more fully on a meditation retreat, where uh, you have where the concentration develops more, and then you can actually absorb into those more deeply. But I think you can do it in daily practice as well. Um, Maybe I should just, having said all that, maybe I should see if there are any questions about that. I'm just wondering if that sort of triggered anything in anybody. I am ready to move on in my topic, but I don't like to leave people unresolved if there's something like, well, could you?
All right.
Oh,
All right.
yes.
So when you're teaching a beginner, someone who's never meditated, would you skip the focus on the breath and go straight to pay attention to your energetic qualities, the mood, and the other kinds of things, or would you start with the breath? Because I noticed that a lot of the time you don't start with the breath. You
Yeah.
start off with how are you feeling, and pay attention to the qualities that you notice, and then for several minutes, then finally connect with the breath. So would you do that for a very beginner, or is that kind of this group you kind of lead in a more spontaneous way? My question.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Um, my general policy is to uh, ease people in, even beginners. That and this just comes out of my own, experience. That if I if I just try to immediately go to the breath, that it it it's just difficult for me to just like go right to the breath, and it feels sort of unnatural to go from, uh, I'm just sitting down here, and now I'm going to just shut everything out. Um, and and so generally, I do take people through uh, m- more more time on the body, on settling the body, and kind of those points of tension that I often focus on: the jaw, the shoulders, the belly. Um, that I think when people relax those places, they that helps them to already start to settle. And then, yeah, I usually, if I'm going to it systematically, I do that. And then I ask them to be aware of the whole body, which is again really just trying to get them to be kind of like here in their body in a general way. And then I talk about sound usually, because a lot of this is like to counter people's expectations. So I think a lot of people think that sound is a distraction, and it's a problem. And so so I want to let them know, like, it's okay if there's a sound, you can just listen. But it's also an attempt to kind of set them up in this sort of global awareness of what, what they're experiencing, what through all their senses. Again, rather than just like, okay, I'm going to shut everything out by just being aware of the breath, instead saying, okay, let's start by just realizing that there's all this stuff happening, that if I bring intentionality to it, I can notice it individually or as a whole. So body, then sound, and then, yeah, then I just suggest uh, that people notice what their mood is. And again, because that's something that ordinarily kind of gets left out in meditation, I think, and people don't realize how much it affects what will happen when they try to meditate, when you try to go to your breath. If you are worried about something or angry about something, or sad about something, that's going to come into your meditation. And so I think it's better to like acknowledge that first of all, just see it. And so then I feel like I've kind of given them a global idea of what's going on in their mind and body. And then now we're going to come to the breath. And in a sense, then they can feel the breath as part of this bigger mind experience. And they're not, again, trying to push everything away, or or sort of enclose themselves just in the breath, but that they're just sitting in something more open and natural in which they're breathing and they're feeling the breath, but there's also other stuff going on. So yeah, for beginners, I do that, um, because I don't want people to think meditating is paying attention to the breath, you know? Is that enough? Good. Thank you. So, yeah, that's and as you also probably have noticed since you've been paying attention to how I teach meditation, once I get people to the breath, then I'm quiet for a little while, and I try to be quiet long enough that that I figure they'll start thinking. And that's when I drop in the instruction about thoughts. It's like, okay, it's quiet. Okay, they're probably thinking now. So then I'll say, it's natural for the mind to wander because that's the last thing. And one of the most important things is to normalize thinking so that people don't think they're meditating wrong or they're bad at it or this isn't supposed to happen. It's like, oh, okay, that's okay now. And then, just give them an instruction to just keep returning to the breath. So there you go. That's how you teach meditation in the Kevin Griffin method, which, by the way, is not exactly original, but and it's actually very similar. If you listen to Ajahn Amaro, he gives very, I think I drew a lot of it ultimately from the way he teaches meditation. So I will embark onto the promise of the day, which is that we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. So this is from September 16th of my daily reflections. Well, I shouldn't call them my daily reflections of the book, Buddhism and the 12 Steps Daily Reflections. And it's just called Gaining Interest in Others. Addiction is selfish. It's all about satisfying our own craving and controlling our circumstances. Other people are there to satisfy our needs, and if they don't, we want them out of the way. Recovery breaks us of these selfish ways. When trapped in addiction, all your energy focuses on your self-centered craving. When you are no longer in that trap, you discover the joy of focusing on others. One Buddhist monk says, "Whenever I think of myself, I get depressed." Taking our attention off our own problems can actually be a big relief. Getting clean and sober is a little like coming out of hibernation, blinking at the light, and seeing that there's a big wide world out there. We aren't alone, and it's time to engage with others for more than purely self-centered reasons. When we're not so concerned with satisfying every craving, it becomes possible to care about other people. When we aren't lost in our own suffering all the time, we can use some of our energy to reach out and help others. As the big book says, we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. In both 12-step work and Dharma practice, community or Sangha is central. In recovery, we depend upon meetings, sponsors, and friends in the program to be with us in the tough times and to share the good ones. In Dharma practice, we depend upon teachers to guide us and peers to support us. Few people can learn and sustain a meditation practice alone. And over time, as our recovery and Dharma practice ripen, we naturally begin to look for ways to share with others. Today, reflect on your relationship to this teaching. Have you, quote, lost interest in selfish things and gained interest in others? So, Yeah, certainly a very um, persistently useful topic. Um, uh, yeah, I just remember my own when my sponsor uh, told me that I needed to start doing service, and the first thing I did was volunteer to help clean up at the meeting on Thursday mornings in Santa Monica. There was a name for that meeting. I can't remember what it was, but it was a great meeting. Anyway, I started sweeping the floors in the meeting, and the first benefit of that was that I met a bunch of people. Instead of just sitting in the back of the meeting and listening, I got to know people, and it also made me feel like I was part of something, that I wasn't just on the sidelines, that I was contributing. And shortly, eh, I realized that, and I started to sponsor one or two people. I think the first person I sponsored relapsed and went back to prison a few weeks later. So I didn't feel that that was maybe my greatest skill. But it, I shortly realized that the steps were kind of tricking me into doing things that would make me happy. That it would never have occurred to me to help other people as like a thing to do. Like that's just not my personality. You know, my self-centeredness definitely persists beyond my drinking and using times. But it was like, wow, this feels really good. Who knew? And of course, a lot of the world knew, but I didn't. And so it just really opened up this whole other way of viewing the world. And as I say, I think of it like the steps tell you to do this stuff, but that doesn't really tell you why. Ostensibly, it's all about just staying sober, right? I guess. You have to write this inventory and you have to do all this stuff because if you don't, you'll relapse. Uh, but you discover that there's much more to it than that, right? That there are many more benefits, which is, of course, what the promises are telling us, that all this other stuff comes along with it. Um, but even that promise doesn't exactly tell you that it's going to make you happy. It just says, you'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in others. And it doesn't say that that's going to make you a lot happier than obsessing on your own shit. That, oh, yeah, right. Really? Which maybe they should tell you that because maybe people would be more, you know, inclined to do stuff for others. But of course, it's not a secret. It's something that's there in every spiritual practice, every religion, and it's really built into the fiber of humanity. Humans are social animals, as they say, and you know we see how people respond to crises and to accidents and things where people just jump in and help because that's our nature as human beings. And um, I mean, I guess we can also say it's our nature to be selfish. So our nature isn't one thing, because there's that whole greed, hatred, and delusion thing too. Um, but I mean, the Dharma kind of does. Uh, i- the principle to me of the Dharma is that when you strip away the surface uh, tendencies, that which you could just summarize as greed, hatred, and delusion, that what's there is kindness, is generosity, is compassion. Um, but that's sort of maybe a philosophical question, one that's not particularly that, that important to answer. No, but I just, to me, this promise is just pointing to something that's so important to remember. And and I guess, it is easy to forget. Just helping others, you know, um, brings great benefit, brings great joy. Uh, I mean, it's clear like some people are naturally like that, and and we can get lost in that too, right? I mean, that's what I guess codependence is someone who, you know, has a need, an unhealthy need to sacrifice their own welfare to help others, sacrifice their own preferences to help others. So, that's I think that that kind of points to the need for a middle way. You know that that is such a just such an important idea to remember whenever we get this idea that, oh, this is it. I've got it now. I just should just do that. I should just help other people. Then do everything for them. Forget about me. Just need to do stuff. Oh, wait. um, yeah, that's not working. Uh, because we know that the alternative. Oh, I'm just going to do what I want. I'll just forget about everybody else. The, it is very much like the principle that the Buddha his initial teaching about not striving for pleasure and not just living a purely ascetic life, but finding a balance between the two. It's very much the same question. So I guess the topic is service. If we're going to have a topic, and I'll just see if anybody wants to chime in here. Oh, Carol, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thanks for your talk today. Always interesting. I recently retired in January from a 33-year career.
Mm.
And for the last 2 years, I've been getting myself mentally ready, to be on my own and not have all that responsibility. And I was doing these mental exercises like conceptual visualization of what I would actually be doing and what I could possibly be feeling when I didn't have that job anymore. And then I got deep into the Eightfold Path. And I was thinking about wise livelihood. And I thought, oh my, what am I going to do if I don't have a job anymore? What's going to be my wise livelihood? I mean, I don't want to spend my days, on the couch eating granola, watching Netflix. And even though I have lots of hobbies, I was still worried about that. And then it came to me through reading a lot of stuff that my livelihood, well, my job was in essence like social work because I was making sure that people had monetary and medical benefits in the right amount on time. And so that's a pretty big responsibility. And while I was prepared to leave all that behind, I didn't know what I'd do coming forward. So after reading a lot about the wise livelihood, I realized I have to take care of myself and make myself the best person I can be to be available, to be of service to others. And currently, I'm into a lot of the Recovery Dharma stuff with the Women of Recovery Dharma. And
Nice.
I'm also still big in AA, got the keys to the building for the meeting. I hold women's meetings. I sponsor a lot of people. And I tell you what, my life is so full now. in many ways. I mean, my calendar is full, and emotionally I'm full, because I feel like I am keeping myself healthy, doing what I need to do to be available to others. And what comes back to me is incredible. It really is. Sometimes I have to, stop because I'm burning the candle at both ends way more than I did with my job.
Hmm.
But I have found a livelihood in being of service to others, and it's really incredible. I'm enjoying my retirement more than I thought I ever would. So thanks. That's all I got today.
Wonderful. That's great, Carol. Thank you. Hmm. Hmm. Debbie, hi.
Good morning. Nice to be here today. I'm so glad you came around to the end there. Talking about people who have this codependency leaning. I remember when I first came into AA, I probably had only been to a couple meetings, and when the announcements came around, they needed someone to be a greeter, they needed someone to do this or do that, and it's like I just wanted to, oh, I'll do that, and it's like, what are you doing? Especially like, who's willing to be a sponsor? It's like I just, I just wanted to freaking help. So it's interesting today as you were sharing this, I was thinking, you know, my codependency was kind of like that near enemy of service
Mhm.
in a sense. And so for me
Yeah.
in my recovery, I need to really watch that. I need to make sure, actually, now that I've learned how to nurture my own well-being without being destructive, it's all about that middle way, just like you said, being in that balance of being of service to others, um, without compromising myself, and then also learning not to be destructive in how I um, might compromise my own well-being,
Yeah.
overly indulging with others. So I came up with this feeling in my head this morning, oh, I want to write a book called Alive and Free in the Middle Way. Whereas that
Mhm.
used to be a really boring place for me to think of being. Well, who wants to be in the middle? Um,
Right.
so yeah, the challenge was being of service, but in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful gift.
Well, it's interesting, like what the impulse there is. Partly, it's like to escape your own feelings, because we know that, like, we get out of ourselves, and we talk about that as a positive thing, like getting out of you know, our self-obsession and being of service. But then, as you're pointing to, it's like, yeah, that can become just an attempt to get away get away from ourselves in a negative way, to not feel our own feelings because we don't want to face that. Uh, and then, I mean, it's a really interesting sort of pathology, if you will, the codependence, that feeling that you don't deserve happiness, or that you don't deserve to be taken care of, that other people deserve it more, or the feeling that people aren't going to like you if you don't do things for them, that they're not going to just accept you as you are, that you have to, like, earn it. So there's like a whole bunch of layers of it. I mean, I think it manifests in different ways. It can be different versions of that. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, many layers. And like I also, realized at that time that maybe it was also a way of myself finding value,
Mhm.
rather it being intrinsic from my inner value.
Right.
If I can do this or this, then there's value, but that's external. It's not, and it was
Right.
not internal.
Right. And that's something that our society essentially tells us, that we have to do something externally to be valuable,
Mhm.
to be worthy. It's, our degree or our job or our kids or our, whatever, something, our house, our car, something that shows that we're worth something. Yeah. Um, hmm. There's something else I was thinking about it, but I can't remember. A few more minutes if anyone else wants to join in. I see some new faces here. I think they're new. I don't always see everybody, but hi, Monica. Did you say it was 100 in Colorado?
Yeah.
But it's dry, it's a dry heat, right?
Yeah, it's a dry heat, but we're worried. Last year we had 300,000 acres burn
Yeah.
right like 7 miles from here. So we're kind of worried, but
Yeah.
letting go of that. The one thing
I know.
I just wanted to say that I always struggle with is because I'm an addict, I don't do anything in moderation. It doesn't come naturally. And so even service can be like that, so
Yeah.
it's I don't have that. I mean, I'm learning as I go, but the moderation thing, the middle way, am I doing service for acknowledgement, like was already mentioned, or so to me in the Buddhist sense, it would be, I'm getting very selfish, or I'm actually trying to help my fellow man. I struggle with that middle way on that. So.
Yeah, it's classic. That's great. You really, that this is, it's also one of the risks of becoming self-aware through mindfulness is that we see the layers and the complexity of intention. And we realize it's not as simple as we would like to believe it is. So at a certain point, I think then we have to again bring in acceptance to say like, okay, I'm not perfect. My intention isn't perfect. It's mixed. Part of my intention is I want to be of service. Part of my intention is I want people to like me or I want to succeed or whatever, and just see like, oh, that's okay. Like, like here I am, I'm a, meditation teacher, and okay, part my intention is to be of service, but also there's like ego involved and there's money involved and it's like, uh, to pretend that that's not there or to feel shame that it's there is just to deny, reality and that of course, if I'm not perfect and why would my intentions be perfect? And so that's okay. To me, then it comes back to, okay, is there balance? Am I here just like grasping at attention, or am I here like trying to promote myself to make a whole lot of money because that's boat that I want to buy, like, okay, that's out of balance. But I don't know why I said a boat. I'm not interested in having a boat, but I mean, it could be nice, but anyway. Jonathan, is that AB? Is that Albuquerque? Where is that?
No, it's Alberta.
Alberta.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a foreign country.
Yeah, I'm international, baby.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
We're the Texas of Canada. If that helps.
I've been to Alberta. I actually I have a guitar that I got in Red Deer.
Interesting. Yeah, Red Deer's
fascinating, I'm sure to you. Yes.
a little bit actually.
What have you got, Jonathan?
Kind of story, but yeah, thanks for the topic, Kevin. And it's something I have to reflect on so much because like lots of the stuff that was shared, and I just kind of want to share like my own little bit of experience with it. Is that Coda was like a huge part, or still is a big part of my recovery, but like especially earlier on was like a huge part. And like I was all twisted up and codependent and didn't really know whether I was coming or going, early sobriety and codependent. And like, so like it got to the place where I started this meeting in my hometown, and like, you know, like slowly but surely I was like doing every single service position. I was taking the coda message into the treatment center all by myself. I was like doing, you know, all this stuff, right? And by the end of like year 3, I had this like, you know, like no, and I like in hindsight, it was like no one gave a shit anymore. Like no one was appreciating me. I wasn't getting the validation I needed. I wasn't getting the accolades I needed. People were just like expecting it of me.
Right.
And I was so bitter and burnt out, right? And by the end of it, I had this like giant bag, which it turned out to be about $600 of coins on my fridge, hadn't been counted for months. And I just brought it to the meeting. I was like, I'm done. You guys can do this. I'm out. But it was like, it was such an important process of like figuring that part out of like, oh yeah, like, why are you so pissed off? Like, why are you doing this? Obviously it wasn't for step 12, right? Like I wasn't like trying to carry the message from a selfless way. It was just this like twisted mess of ego, right? And yeah, and then I obviously came to a place, and now I have to check it so much by the, like has been said about by the Dharma, right? Like what's my intention here? And it usually steers me right.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I mean, how do we learn? You know, we learn by making mistakes. We don't learn by doing it right. If we do it right, we don't realize that there was something else we could have done. Uh, and I actually, yeah, I appreciate you bringing it back to intention, because I think you are reminding me that this is again like this beautiful blending that happens when we bring Dharma into recovery work. How helpful it is to have something like right intention as a guiding principle, that we can kind of be like, just, yeah, wait, why am I doing that? And realizing like, that's not just a question I should ask myself now and then. It's one that I should really have as, uh, as I say, as a guiding principle in my life, in my daily life. It's just to understand intention, and and because it's so much part of addiction. I mean, it's part of everything, intention, but you know, addiction being driven by grasping is such an unskillful intention that it's really important for us to see it. Uh, our intentions easily get corrupted in recovery, or outside of, before recovery. So I think that's it for today. Nice to hear from people. So there was something else I was going to say. Maybe, oh, should I mention, I could mention Donna. Donna is not my friend or my girlfriend. It's not a Richie Valens song, Oh Donna. It is how people support my teaching. So if you are, uh, can support me through finance, that's great. Other people support me in other ways, like Angela supports me by running my chat. Thank you, Angela. Um, and as I mentioned, you know, we are looking for a place to do a retreat. So hopefully something will come along. So whatever time of day it is for you, I hope it proceeds safely, joyfully. Yeah, be well, and see you next time.